If you want to know how to grow and care for canna, this is the video for you. This is a beautiful variegated canna that I purchased last year and I brought in at the end of the growing season. This has been indoors all winter, and as soon as we get past the last frost date, it will be going back outside for another growing season. So why would anyone want to grow canna? Well, they add a beautiful tropical feel to almost any garden or border. Large, beautiful leaves, colors in red, pinks, yellows, white, orange, and blends of those colors, bicolored, tricolored. They stand out anywhere you see them in a garden. And if you ever looked at a canna and said, is that a canna or is that a banana tree? It's because cannas and bananas are in the same family. They're not in the family with lilies, but they're in the family with bananas and ginger. So you'll notice a lot of similarities in the growth habit where you have these tall stems which come up and these leaves that come off. Ginger tends to be more fine stemmed, bananas larger stem. But you see a lot of similarities in the canna, the banana, and ginger. Canna are also great because they have a lot of versatility in one plant. They look good in pots, as I have this one here, which I brought in from outdoors last year. They look good in borders. You could put them in mixed borders. They look really great along beside ponds. And you could also plant them out beside pools to give your pool a more tropical feel. If you're looking to add canna to your garden, you can find the rhizomes in the spring in your garden centers or your shopping centers. They're available for you in these packages. They typically just have on it the bloom, but they don't talk about the height. That information is going to be on the back. They come in multiple heights. You can have the dwarf cannas, which I mentioned are very short. You can have some really tall ones. I've seen them well over 2 meters, well over 10 feet tall. They can grow exceptionally tall. So know which varieties you're getting. But most people are selecting based on the color. I've noticed over years, though, people have been gravitating towards buying the shorter cannas. So a lot of those that are available will be of the shorter variety. Those really tall ones really do take up a lot of space. This is what I would call a classic canna, where you have that yellow and orange color mixed together. This is Queen Charlotte. I've seen this canna all over the place. Here is another one. It's just called Canna Red. It's just a classic. You'll find it all over the place. You can see it everywhere. This one is Tropicana, which is a beautiful variegated variety. It's going to have a bit of a yellow and orange type bloom. That's what it's going to look like, similar to this. But the variegation in the leaves, they also come with red variegated leaves, orange variegated leaves. There are a lot of different hybridized varieties of canna. You could add a lot of color and foliage to your garden. I find cannas work best along the edges of ponds or in a well-watered bed. They're tropical, they come from tropical locations, and they like a lot of moisture. So throughout the growing season, make sure you keep your cannas well watered. As I mentioned, you can pick up your canna in the early spring in all of your garden centers. I will note, though, that this type of plastic bag is not the right type of conditions to keep those rhizomes in. You see this one, nice little green bud there. I like to buy them early in the spring, bring them home, and then put them in a pot. What I do is put them in a pot, nice rhizomes. You put them in a pot horizontally, and if you have a shoot that's sticking up, put that up, but put them horizontal in a pot, cover them up, water them in well. They'll start to grow for you, and that way they're not dying and drying out in a bag, because they may have them out way before your last frost date for your growing area. This way they won't dry out in the bag. I put them in a pot, I add a bit of soil, add some water to them, and then they'll come up, and then I will move them outside after my last frost date. A pro tip is to make sure that when you're planting your rhizomes in a pot, you're putting them at the proper depth, which will be annotated on the back of the package. That's where you're going to find out your depth for each specific rhizome, typically around 5 inches or so, maybe 6, but the specifics will be on the package. Plant it in the pot at the right depth. When it starts to sprout and it's growing, then you take it out of the pot and plant it in the ground at the same depth, and you should be okay for that growing season. Another key point, even if you notice that this little bud, which is starting to sprout out, has gone green, still plant this at the proper depth. Don't plant this at soil height and saying you don't want to cover up that green. It's okay to cover it up. Just make sure you get that in the ground as soon as possible, and it will continue to grow and will push back up through the ground, through the soil for you, and that's no problem. Make sure you're planting again with those eyes facing up. You can see this eye here, and there's another one coming out right there on the side. Make sure that's facing up, but horizontal is the best way to put these in the ground. You don't want to put them in the ground like this or like that. Just lay them flat, make a nice flat hole, and make a hole, flat bottom, put a little bit of slow release fertilizer in the bottom, 10-10-10 fertilizer, slow release over a 6-month period, 3 to 6 months slow release fertilizer going into the ground with that rhizome. That's a perfect way to put those rhizomes into your pot as well as put them directly into the ground if you're after your frost date for your location. What are optimal growing conditions for canna? Well, they love sun, and a lot of it. 6 to 8 hours of full sun per day is what you need for that canna to thrive. This one has been indoors under grow lights all winter, so it's not its best, but once it gets outside in the full sun, it's really going to perk up. So make sure you're planting your cannas in full sun. Again, keep them well watered, full sun, and they will grow splendidly. Another thing you want to make sure is, again, use that slow release fertilizer. I use a 10-10-10 balanced fertilizer. That tends to work really well. They grow really well in zone 7 through 10 in those hotter, warmer climates. You can keep them in cooler climates. Just make sure you keep them in full sun. I use a well-balanced compost when I'm planting my canna. That's what I have in my pots as well as in my growing beds. But if you have more sandy soil, be sure to amend that soil with a rich compost. That's what the canna needs to thrive in. Sandy soil, they won't do quite as well. They will grow, but you'll get better results if you amend with a rich compost. As I mentioned, the planting depths are on the package, but think about 4 to 5 inches deep and about 12 inches separating the rhizomes. These rhizomes, which are small right now, can get exceedingly large. We'll cover that in just a moment, but these do get much bigger than this. Throughout the growing season, canna don't require much from you. They tend to be a pretty self-sufficient plant. If you keep it well watered, plenty of sunlight with that right amount of fertilizer, it'll do really well. After the plant blooms, you can deadhead to encourage new blooms. And if in the middle of growing season, you notice that some of the vines or stems are getting kind of long and looking kind of leggy, you can cut those back to about 6 inches above the ground, and they will resprout again and put out a new stem, which will give you a fuller look as well as not be as leggy across the growing season. It's at the end of the growing season where you really need to put in a bit of effort with your canna, and it's going to be dependent on where you live. Hopefully when you put it in the ground early in the year, you did mulch it. And if you live in zone 7 through 10 or a zone that stays pretty warm, your soil temperature doesn't drop below freezing in the wintertime or not too far below freezing, you can mulch heavily and leave that canna in the ground. But if you live in a more northerly zone and you know you're going to have an issue with keeping those bulbs or rhizomes in the ground, you can lift them, store them indoors in a dry condition, or you can lift them and store them indoors in pot. This is what I decided to do here. I kept this one in a pot and I brought it indoors. I kept it going through the whole winter. I'm going to set it back outside. I could have also brought it in, take those rhizomes, wash them off, dry them off, and put them in a nice cool location, and then they would sit there through the winter dormant and put them back out in the spring. But you don't want to leave them in the ground if you know you have really cold conditions. As a tropical plant, next year it will not come back if your ground freezes solid, hard, cold. Just can't handle those conditions. If you want to bring your canna in and keep it in a pot, then you want to bring it in before the first frost. Before your first frost, go bring that in, bring the pot in. If it's in the ground, lift it out of the ground, put it in the pot, bring it inside. Reduce watering over the winter time so you can slow growth, and that plant should do fine. Keep it under growing lights if you drop down with low light conditions. I don't have a lot of light here in the winter, so I've kept these under grow lights. It doesn't do great, but it's thrived enough to keep it going, and it'll look great when I get it back outside. If you want to keep it in more of just a rhizome state, then you want to wait till after the first frost. Let that frost hit the plant. It'll die back down to the ground. You go in, you cut off all that top, lift it out of the ground, separate those rhizomes, wrap them in newspaper, put them in some vermiculite, and then you can bring that indoors and store it over the winter season to put back outside again in the spring. What are some of the pests that affect canna? Well, slugs for one. I think a slug snuck in with this plant. I don't know if you can see it, but it has a bit of a sticky look to it. Some of that could be just residue off the plant, but I think it's a trail from a slug. If you get slugs or snails, they can mess up your leaves quite a bit. There's also a leaf roller insect, which you want to use an insecticide for that. You'll notice that because what happens is, as this leaf is trying to unroll, there's a webbing, or it looks like a spider web, which will hold that leaf in place and it won't be able to unroll. There's an insect in there that causes that to happen. Insecticides keep that. Slugs, you can pick those off by hand. So you want to keep an eye out for those leaf rollers, slugs, and snails. Those tend to be the most common pest for canna. Another problem with canna is rust or fungal problems or fungal spots. That could be caused by plants being packed in too tightly together, not enough airflow. So you may want to separate them out, space them out a little bit. You could also not water from above. Water from above increases fungal problems. So you want to water at the base of the plant. That could also reduce some of those fungal problems and reduce rust. Canna can be propagated in two ways. One would be by lifting those rhizomes at the end of the year, where you have those long rhizomes, which start at the beginning of the season like this. It may grow out quite a bit more over the season. You have a section with about 3 eyes on it, 3 to 5. You can separate that off. That would create a whole new plant for you. That section where you cut will scar over, no problem there. It could also be propagated by seeds. If you take the seed, scarify, put a little nick in that seed, soak it in hot water about 6 to 8 weeks before frost. You can take them, sow them indoors, and they'll grow for you over the growing season through the winter. And then in the spring, you have those tiny little sprouts. You can plant those back outside. They will propagate. It will be a few years, though, before the canna that's grown from seed will actually produce a bloom. The canna that's separated by rhizome should produce blooms the very next year. What are some other problems that you could run into with growing canna? They could grow really big and bushy and have no blooms. That could mean that the plants need to be separated. If they're too close together, if they've gotten all packed in, lift those rhizomes, separate them out. You want to do that at about every 2 to 3 years if you're going to leave them in ground. But if you lift them every year, then every year you're going to separate those out, spread them out to give them a bit more space. So if they're also not blooming, are you getting enough sun on those plants? If you have yellowing leaves, if the plants are drooping, are you getting the full amount of sun that the plants need to grow and thrive? A key indicator that you're not getting enough sun is if the plants are growing sideways, leaning towards the sun, not standing straight up, then you know that you're not getting enough sunlight. Canna really like a lot of hot blazing sunlight. So canna are a wonderful plant to add to any garden. I've been growing them since I was a kid. Me and my dad used to collect them. We'd have some of the short ones, some of the tall ones. We aim for different colors, different varieties. We had beautiful beds of them. They're wonderful plants. You can grow them in mass and they make quite a statement in any bed or border. If you want to add cannas, pick them up in the spring. If you can get them across the growing season, you can buy them from other gardeners. You can pick them up at garden centers. They're available for you. They're a nice plant to have. Hey, if you have any questions or comments, drop those down below. If you know something else about cannas, leave that down below for other gardeners to see. If you have questions for me, drop those in the comments as well, and I'll try to respond as soon as I can. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow along with the channel. I love to do plant how-tos, and I love to go and visit beautiful gardens. I'd love to have you along with me. Until next time, take care.